Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast, where real students are doing real deals in the world of multifamily real estate. I'm Vince Gethings, the owner of the Wheelwell Profits Academy. Listen in as we dive into the journeys of driven individuals who are turning their dreams into reality. These people are just like you, taking action and making things happen. If you enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, and if you're ready to take action, check us out at wheelwellprofits.com to learn more about our incredible community. Let's get started.
This is Movers and Shakers, where we interview the upcoming generation of Make It Happen multifamily investors to share their story.
Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake and Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, mentor, and I'm joined by my co-host, my brosif, Josh Rusin, the community director of Jake and Gino. Josh, how are you today, Josh?
Gino, doing well. Actually, I'm really excited. This Friday, we have a volunteer event here. What we're doing is working for the Boys and Girls Club, going to go actually build a playground. So very excited about that. Giving back is very important to me and seeking that sense of purpose. Gino, how about you? What are you excited about?
For all the listeners out there, Josh is not going to be picking up a hammer. Don't worry. He's not going to be building the play set. He's going to be watching, maybe navigating, maybe throwing a little bit of sand underneath the play set. Right, Josh? Because we don't want you doing any kind of construction work out there. So I'm doing good. The weather's nice down here still going to the beach. We have our money mixer coming up, Josh, in a week. It's sold out. We got a big bus. We're going to do some bus touring. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have the live event coming up October 19th and 20th. That is going to be sold out real soon. So if you want to get your tickets, get them quickly because the VIP is sold out and the premier tickets are sold out. So all we have left is general seating. So if you want to get down to this event, it's going to be a lot of fun. Our guest today is going to be a big part of the event. Josh is going to be a big part of the event. The whole Jake and Gino team is going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we've been up to a lot, Josh.
Love it. And I agree. If you're going to go to the event, definitely act now. jakeandgino.com/mastery 2019 or reserve your seats. Look forward to personally meeting you there. And speaking as today's guest, we have Dillon McGough. A little bit about Dillon. He graduated from Michigan State University in 2013, where he began working in the political realm in both the private sector as well as the legislative branch. Before leaving politics in 2018, he worked for a large healthcare association where he represented the political interest of hospitals throughout the state of Michigan. Dillon also has experience as a commercial real estate broker, focusing on investment sales, as well as currently owning and managing a portfolio of retail and multifamily assets. Most recently with the acquisition of a 62-unit apartment complex in West Virginia. Welcome to the show, Dillon.
Josh, Gino, thanks for having me, guys. I'm truly excited to be here.
So Dillon, all right, I want to unpack that bio here. You went to college. What made you decide to get in the political realm, and how did you end up in the career you were in?
Yeah, great question, Josh. Thanks for asking. I always had an interest in the political realm. Never for a minute did I ever think it was going to be a career for me. I had my junior year in college, living in the state capital of Michigan, like I said, always having an interest in politics, just ended up finding a semester my junior year where I had a couple extra days a week. And I wanted to be able to kind of fit something into those couple extra days a week that I had open. So my interest being politics, I ended up deciding to apply for a legislative internship with my hometown state representative. I ended up doing an internship with him for about 6 months, kind of learning the ins and outs of politics. And I sort of fell in love with it at that point. And that internship led to a second internship with a lobbying firm, and that brought me up to graduation from Michigan State. And at that point, like I said, I kind of fell in love with it and decided it would be in my best interest to go full time. And I ended up working straight out of college in a government relations role and a lobbying role for one of the big three autos on the private side. And I worked there for a couple of years, built up relationships, and I decided at that point to go back into the legislative branch to get some experience from the inside. And very quickly, it took about 6 to 8 months, I was sucked back out into the private sector, and I ended up working for a large healthcare organization in the state of Michigan representing hospitals' political interests. And I kind of worked my way up the ladder to where in 2017, I was actually voted by a group of my peers. These are other lobbyists, legislators, and legislative staff as the second most effective lobbyist in an association role in the state of Michigan. And that brought me to the point where I knew long term back in college, I didn't think politics, even going into this career, would be a long term thing for me. I was always obsessed with having my own business and never actually working for anybody else. So I did all of these searches back in the last couple of years throughout my schooling of what are the types of business that can truly create that long-term generational wealth for you, but also where you're not having to work with anybody else. And I just kept seeing over and over again real estate. And that's all that stuck in my mind throughout the time that I was working in politics.
Love that. Okay, so you're looking at the niche of real estate. You're looking at, hey, I want to transition out of this career. Why did you settle on multifamily, or how did you even get there?
Absolutely. And just to give you a little bit of background on my starting point, coming out of school, I didn't know how to get started in real estate. I thought you had to invest in apartment complexes and large scale retail buildings. You had to have some multi-million-dollar net worth. And so the way that I decided to start, I actually had a few friends that had their real estate license out of school. And I saw that they were making a little bit of money representing buyers and representing sellers. So I decided to get my license alongside working in the political realm. And I started working with buyers, working with sellers. And what I had quickly noticed was that the people that were truly making creating wealth for themselves in the real estate game were the ones that were actually owning it. So that led me to the point to continue my education. I really and truthfully did not want to get involved in the single family homes, duplexes. While I did for a little while, I knew that it wasn't really going to move the needle to create that generational wealth that I was looking for. So I basically got to this point where I knew I needed the education, but I questioned is how was I going to get that? And in came working with a mentor, which I will always say is the absolute most important thing for somebody to get involved in this scale of real estate. And I ended up working with a mentor, and that being the Jake and Gino community. And after working with this community of like-minded investors for the next few years, it got me to a point where I was comfortable in leaving my job in the political world and continuing to build up my portfolio to actually help me create that long-term generational wealth that, unfortunately, while I truthfully enjoyed the political realm, was never going to get me to that point where I create financial freedom for myself, where I work for myself and don't have to answer to anybody else. And that's ultimately what led me to the decision to leave in late 2018 to go full-time in the real estate realm.
All right, I want to unpack that a little bit more because you bring up some good points, right? Transactional income, being a realtor, doing something, get paid once for it, or maybe even a fix and flip or a wholesale, which can be a great active income versus the idea of doing something and getting paid for it over and over and over again. And that's owning real estate passively. So love that. And then also scaling up, right? The single family stuff, the duplexes, triplexes, versus what you just took down would be a 62 unit, powers of economies of scale and things like that. And then getting educated, shortcutting your learning curve. Dillon, how old are you for all the listeners out there?
I'm 28 years old.
And full-time in multifamily real estate currently?
Full-time in multifamily real estate.
That's huge. Gino, you want to dive in with some questions here?
How did you find the Jake and Gino community?
I actually found the Jake and Gino community, as I'm sure anyone listening to this podcast is aware of Bigger Pockets. And I was actually just doing some searches, figuring out whether or not working with a mentor would be right for me. I actually posted just a question about a building that I currently have in my portfolio, a little triple net lease. I believe the question was about financing, and I ended up getting connected with Gino, and we had an amazing conversation. And it got to the point where I just had a really, really good feeling about the community of like-minded individuals. And that's where I truthfully believe success was going to be created, was surrounding myself with people that are doing more than me at a higher level that are going to kind of help me level that up. And throughout my conversations with you, Gino, I really, I realized that this would be the best step for me forward to being able to achieve those deals. You made me realize that I didn't have to have some multi-million-dollar net worth to get into these large-scale apartment buildings. It all came down to surrounding myself with the right people and using leverage to be able to get me to that level. So I truly appreciate everything you've been able to give to me.
So what do you say to people that say, oh, all they want to do is take money? These real estate gurus out there, I can do it all on my own. And I've seen so many threads out there, and I just want to tell everybody, listen, I felt that way 20 years ago too, and I wasted a lot of my time. And then obviously when I went and found my education back 10, 12 years ago, and I hired a coach and a mentor, and I went to life coaching school, everything changed for me. What do you say to the people out there that still hold on to that? And they're always looking at someone as if they're trying to rip them off. What would you say to them?
That's such a great point, Gino. And I truthfully believe one of the big things there is just a limited mindset. And the first thing, it's such a simple answer. One of the first things that I tell these people is you need to make sure that you do your due diligence with anybody you're looking to work with. Make sure, first of all, that the real deal, they're doing what they say that they're doing. And that, and that second of all, the big thing here is Josh says this each and every time. You can either choose two paths. You can choose basically leveraging a proven system in an educator that's been there, that's done that, that's taken their lumps and bruises, or you can learn from the school of hard knocks. And for me, it was a very simple choice. And I wanted to be able to sidestep all of those big issues that come up with trying to go at this business alone. This is a team sport. And I knew that it was, like I said, in my best interest to work with somebody that can hold my hand throughout that process and make sure I'm doing exactly what I need to do to be able to make it in this business. So it all comes down to leveraging somebody that's been there and done that. And while there are people out there that go at this alone, a lot of times they have to take a lot of lumps and bruises to be successful. And you and Jake talk about it all the time, and the fact that you guys have made that mistake in this business, made mistakes in this business, and that's what I truly love about you guys is you're so transparent, and the fact that you have our best interests in mind, and that you're willing to show us exactly where you made the mistakes and exactly how to avoid those in the future, which has made my job in scaling up my portfolio so much easier.
Dillon, you've mentioned a couple things, a couple of your limiting beliefs or objections that you had before you started multifamily. You say, you needed multi-million-dollar net worth, you needed a lot of experience. What other objections did you have that you overcame by joining the academy?
At the time, and to be completely honest with you, Gino, talking about the fact that there's so many folks out there that believe paying to play for a mentor is wrong in this business. And while I understand there's probably folks out there that are not doing this for the right reasons, that's why it's extremely important to do your due diligence. I'll be completely honest with you and transparent. I was one of those people. And I just believe that, pay to play at that point, and working in the political realm definitely there was some reasoning for that. I just believe that at that point, everything was too good to be true, and that if I were to pay for mentorship, that I wasn't going to get out of it what I put into it capital-wise. So that was one of my limiting beliefs.
So it's funny that you say that. We're willing to spend $200,000 to go to college, but when someone says, let's spend 10 grand to learn something, they completely freak out. And I find that disconnect to be amazing, because you have a 4-year degree and then you go get a job and then you got to continue your education, and people don't even question that. It's something where it's completely done. And I think part of the reason is people set that expectation that, you have to go to college. I think you just have to go educate yourself on what you want. I think personal development. Josh, what does Jim Rohn say? Education will give you pay for your lifestyle. Self-education will pay for your whatever. What was that quote?
Make you a fortune.
That's right. So that's important. I mean, it's important that you really work on yourself when you're working on your personal development. Now, Dillon, how did you find this deal in West Virginia that we're talking about?
Absolutely. Great question. And in this deal, I actually have two partners with me working on. And so we found this deal, my partner actually found this deal through a relationship. Real estate being such, relationships in real estate being such an integral part to your success. My partner found this deal through a direct to owner. He had a relationship with this owner long before we ended up purchasing this deal through a meetup that he actually created in Atlanta, where he brought on a bunch of high-level investors, high-level speakers, this big networking community that he put the time and effort to put together. And the owner actually came out to the meetup, and they had some conversation, and they kind of jived a little bit. And they got in conversations about real estate. And this owner, former owner now, he was a former developer all over the country. In Morgantown, West Virginia specifically is where he did a lot of his work. And he had two properties left. And I'll talk about this one deal in West Virginia. It's split up between two properties. He had two left in his portfolio. He was tired of tenants and toilets, is what he liked to tell us. And he ended up, like I said, having a good relationship with my partner. So we started conversations, and this is a deal that's it's taken about a year to come to fruition. But we had started those initial conversations about us taking over. But it all came down to a relationship that my partner had through putting on a meetup out in Atlanta, Georgia.
So I'm just writing down some notes here. So number one, networking. Number two, relationships. Number three, long game, because the long game is really important a year. Number four, being persistent. Number five, the education aspect of it. There's a lot of things that need to happen. That's why it takes people, when they get into this business, 18 months sometimes to get into a deal, because you need to build all of that up, and it's not going to happen overnight. But when it does, something falls in your lap, it's because you put all of that hard work into it. What are the next steps for you in multifamily?
Absolutely, and just to expand on that a little bit, one of the most important things here was that there were so many steps along this way that we had, not necessarily had the confidence that this deal was going to go through. But you talk about persistence and the long game. This deal specifically, there was probably 4 or 5 different times where the deal was about to go through. One of them being that we were looking to receive, the only way we were looking to get into this deal was with owner financing. And right from the get-go, the owner was not interested in owner financing in the slightest. So we had to go back to the drawing board and kind of work up a win-win situation for both us and the owner. And eventually, we got to that point where the owner was interested in owner financing. And then we had to deal with the bank only allowing to have us a very little amount down. So like you said, persistence, playing the long game, and just coming back at it until, I guess until the fat lady sings, it's not over. But that's, I think having a high level coach in my, looking over my shoulder throughout this entire process to kind of navigate all of the pitfalls is truthfully the only reason we were able to take down this deal.
Dillon, let's get into a little more depth about the financing, what you ended up purchasing the deal for, what it appraised for, and then your game plan now that you own it, and kind of how you're going to tackle everything with it.
Absolutely. This is a 62 unit deal, and it's in Morgantown, West Virginia. And like I had said earlier, it's 2 separate properties, one being a 36 unit apartment complex, the other directly next door, it's 26 condominium units. We purchased for $5.5 million. We ended up splitting, it's one loan on the property, but in a way we split up the properties as 2 separate properties. So we purchased the condominium units for $3.3 million. We purchased the apartment complex for $2.2 million. And so, and not to get into the appraisal, but we did well on the appraisal. The condominiums themselves are basically new builds. They were built in early 2000s. That the apartment complex was built in the 80s, but the owner had just put in about $12,000 per unit into the apartment complexes. And the rents in the apartments in the 2 ones are $950, market rents probably around $1,100. So there's immediate value play there of increasing rents to market. And the 1 ones in the apartment complex, is they're about 700 to 750, and we definitely think there's some play there. So having the units just recently renovated, that's a lot of the work that we don't have to do. So the big value play there is being able to just increase market rents upon turnover. And in the condominium units, the big play here is we ended up purchasing at around 120 a door. And we know that we can end up kind of splitting these off individually and selling them off to either an investor or potentially somebody that's just looking to live there. So we got in at about 120 a door, and what we've been able to find through comparables on the residential side is that we're able to sell these things from anywhere between 160 to 180 a door. So the goal here is within the next year to sell off a couple of these, get our debt service ratio coverage, our debt service ratio to a place where we're a little bit more comfortable, and then assess things over the next 12 months to see what the next step is after that.
That's awesome. Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors.
Gino, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. I know that you've been hard at work helping Jake and Gino students do just that using our framework. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
Guys, we've been hard at work growing our community of like-minded investors, and the results of our members has been nothing short of incredible. We're looking to grow this amazing group. What we're looking for is those who want to follow our proprietary framework that we've created. Buy right, manage right, and finance right. Leverage our connections, education, and mentorship as ways to take your business to the next level.
So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become a part of our amazing community, apply to work with us at jakeandgino.com/apply.
Before we hop into the short answer section here, I want to hear kind of how much money you had in this deal to get it. A lot of people say, hey, no money down deals don't exist. It's hard to get seller financing. Give us some of the specifics of what that looked like and how you were able to secure that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the big benefits of real estate is potentially being able to get in, and like you said, into these deals with no or very little money out of your pocket. And so one of the things we approached the owner with right from the get-go is, was he willing to hold paper? Was he willing to owner finance the deal? And from the get-go, he at that point was not interested. And we eventually got to the point where we created a win-win situation. And he was willing to put down owner financing, but only up until a certain amount. So he had a very good relationship with the bank. That the current bank that we're using were the bankers on the loan as well. And so what it ended up being was that he was only willing to put down in owner financing what he had in equity on the property, and the property was very highly leveraged. So what it came down to was he was only willing to put up about 5% of the owner financing, which was a win in our books. But now the next step being, most banks aren't going to ever allow you to be that highly leveraged. So now we needed to have a conversation with the bank the community bank that was willing to do the loan. And through some time improving our credibility, they were willing to allow us to only put down about 5%. And that all came through owner financing. So going back to what we said from the get-go, we came out of pocket with a very little amount of capital here. So my partner and I ended up bringing on one other partner as basically the net worth partner. And we were all very highly focused and have very different skill sets. So we work together synergistically. But like I said, the big thing here is that we had persistence, and that we kind of worked out a situation where we created a win-win for both the owner and ourselves, and proved our credibility to the bank. So they felt comfortable with only allowing us to put down 5% and have this highly leveraged deal. But we have a very decent amount of equity in this deal, so it's something that we're comfortable with moving forward, and the cash flow is there, the debt service ratio is there. So we're comfortable in assessing where we're going to be over the next couple of years and taking a look at the market, since we have some long-term fixed rate debt on this thing. So we've got some room to assess over the next couple of years.
For all the listeners out there, if you didn't catch it, Dillon was able to control a $5.5 million asset with 5% down. That's a huge win. Now, even more so, when he first found the deal, the owner wasn't open to seller financing. But what they did is got creative, presented a win-win solution, and be able to make it happen. That is huge. Okay, so let's dive into the short answer questions here. Dillon, what's your best advice for anyone trying to buy their first multifamily property?
And we've already went over this a couple of times, but I can't say it enough. It's especially in this game, it's leveraging a mentor. And this isn't just advice specifically for multifamily, but this is for anything that you want to be great at, any type of business. I'm not interested in recreating the wheel. I would much rather leverage somebody that already has the proven systems, the proven tools, somebody that's already taken their lumps and bruises, and just kind of help me to lead throughout the process to avoid a lot of those pitfalls that come with trying to do this on your own. I know, Josh, you always say it, you can either learn through a proven system or you can take your lumps and bruises in this business. And I, for one, I don't want any bruises on my face. I like to look at it as my moneymaker. So I want to go through with a relationship with somebody that's already been there, that's already done that, and kind of, walk me through that process.
Love it. What about your favorite book and why?
I've got a couple, one being Shoe Dog, and this is basically just an all-around business book. Shoe Dog, that's the Phil Knight story, the CEO of Nike. This is one where this is a type of guy that's, of course, built up this gigantic behemoth of a business. But for decades in building this business, he was hanging on by a shoestring. And he was the type of guy, and this was a big benefit for me because there were times in my life that I was always caught up in this paralysis by analysis and not taking action because I was worried about the monster that could jump out of the closet that I would never see. And he was like a jump and then figure things out on the way down type of guy. So that pushed me in the direction of, hey, to be successful in this business, sometimes you have to take risks and you're not going to know all the ins and outs. So make sure you've got the right people in your corner and then make that jump and figure things out on the way down. So Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. I would say all around business book, that's easily my favorite.
Love it. What about your best habit for success and why?
I would definitely consider it a habit. What I have found to create the most velocity in my life is when I focus on surrounding myself with people that are doing more than me and are at a high level. One of the big things that I like to say is, I seriously take to heart, is always find that room that you truthfully feel the dumbest. Make sure you're never the smartest person in the room. And that's not that difficult for me. But one of the big habits that I've had to truly create that velocity and success in my life is finding that room where I know I'm not the smartest. And that's where you're able to truthfully learn and leverage up. So I think that's probably the best habit that I've used to create the success that I have.
Wow, those are really good tips. Gino, this episode was just full of golden nuggets. Let's give the listeners a recap of some of them that stood out to you.
Oh, I think everyone should take a pen out and just start writing these few notes down. I think the first thing is your network. You have to really work on people who you want to surround yourself with. So start networking, getting out there, start meeting people, start getting out of your comfort zone. The next one is the relationships. Start building relationships if you want to get into multifamily. Choose a market, select the market, start going out there, start meeting brokers, start meeting property managers, inspectors, start building that big relationship. The next one is get this in your mind. We go to college for 4 years. It might take you 18 months to get into your first deal. Figure out what your why is. What is your why to get in there? And then know that it's going to be a long game. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's okay, because once it does happen, it's going to make it even more sweeter. The next one is persistence. We talked about being persistent and just going to the distance and just going over the distance is what it's going to take to close the deal. And I think the last one is just enjoy it, have fun. I think Dillon was in a soul-sucking job. He really didn't mention that at all. I didn't really want to hammer him too much, but his job was really like my job at the restaurant. It was not what he thought it was. It got played out after a while. It got burned out, and he looked for an alternative. And I think the reason why, he must have had a little pain there, and he looked for something alternative. And a lot of the listeners out there are probably at that point in their lives. So if you are at that point in your life, look at what you want to become. Look at what your sole purpose is, because we only have one go around in this world, in this life. And if you can be stuck in a soul-sucking job, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. I don't want the listeners out there to have a clock and have hours and years until retirement. That's the worst way to live. And I know a lot of people out there who do that. And I don't want you to become one of those people. So go out there and get some clarity in your life, get someone who can help you figure out what you want to do. And I think multifamily is a great vehicle that Dillon shows to get him to the next point, to create that passive income, to create that generational wealth, and also to create a business. I mean, we always say, Jake and I, that multifamily is a business. You don't have to do everything. You can be really good at 1 or 2 skill sets, whether you're raising money, whether you're controlling the deal, whether you're putting the deal together, whether you're underwriting it, whether you're doing day-to-day, whatever it is. There's so many different aspects to the business. So learn the business, and then you can start doing 1 or 2 aspects of it with other partners. So there's been a lot in this podcast, Josh. You have any final thoughts?
No, that was well said. I think you summed it up well. Guys, I want to thank Dillon for being an amazing guest on today's show and sharing his movers and shakers story. If you want to be the next movers and shakers guest, email me, josh@jakeandgino.com. Now, if you like the show, please leave us a review. And until the next time, let's make it a movers and shakers week. See ya, everyone.
Bye, Dillon.
Thanks for having me, fellas.